The opening of the wall was a dream come true for Berliners, but the costs of unification had become a nightmare. When the euphoria of 1989 died down, Berliners were confronted with the giant task of rejoining the two sides of the city. That meant establishing a single working bureaucracy that would bridge over 20 city departments in the once divided East and West. Berlin officials say there were a number of big priorities at the start.
The first one was to get the infrastructure back on its way, so there were no other blocks between East and West to connect the bridges, to connect the streets, subways, and so on.
When the wall was built around West Berlin in 1961, it blocked nearly 175 streets and several subway lines. After the opening of the wall, construction crews worked around the clock to free up vital boulevards in the city center. One of the greatest symbols of East-West unity in the mid-1990s was the reopening of the U2 subway line. Other investments focused on the east side, where 5 decades of communist neglect had ruined many buildings and public works. The Berlin government began spending $6 to $9 billion a year here on reconstruction.
Well, we can say that 1/3 of our annual budget, which is roughly 10 to 15 billion D-marks every year since 1991, went directly into building up of the eastern sector. That is, in 10 years now, almost 100 billion D-marks.
That $54 billion investment began fueling a deficit. When the federal government cut many of the subsidies to Berlin, the deficit peaked at $8 billion a year, and the city will be paying off its debt far into the next millennium.
We have to reduce our costs, and we are going to continue this course, which we're following since 2 or 3 years now. And we hope to attract more labor here and more companies here, so in order to get more incoming money.
The Berlin government has succeeded in attracting big names like Daimler Chrysler and the Sony Corporation. 10 years after the opening of the wall, the changes in Berlin are quite visible. The big challenge for city officials now is to maintain budget discipline so the costs of unification don't overwhelm future generations. Peter Dallé, CNBC, Berlin.